So here's a big question for you. Can a court actually throw you in jail just for owing money? It sounds pretty extreme, right? But it gets to the heart of some really big ideas, like debt, freedom, and what justice really means. We're going to jump right into a real-life case that put this whole thing under the microscope. Okay, so our story really kicks off with this number, 9,30,000 rupees. I mean, that is a lot of money. And it's not just any debt. This was the amount of unpaid family maintenance that had just kept growing and growing, and it all boiled over into a huge legal fight. All right, I want you to put yourself in the judge's shoes for a second. The husband's there, the wife's there, the money hasn't been paid, and the wife is demanding right then and there that he be arrested. What do? I mean, seriously, what's the call? This isn't just a law school question. This is exactly what a real judge had to decide. And, well, their decision kicked off a huge legal battle. Okay, so let's get into the specifics. What was this case that brought this whole dilemma to a head? All right, the case itself is called V.B. Kamalanathan versus K. Jayasree. It landed in the Madras High Court back in 2016. And the question at the heart of it all was, pretty simple on the surface. Was it even legal to issue an arrest warrant for not paying this maintenance? So the whole thing really came down to this one court order. It was super short, but man, it was powerful. This kind of thing doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. It built up over time. The couple got married in 2005. Then, fast forward to 2012, and a maintenance petition gets filed. The court orders payments, but there are challenges, the payments aren't all made, and by 2016, boom, the debt has just exploded to over 9 lakh rupees. And this is the actual order the family court wrote. Seriously, that's it. That's the whole thing. No long legal explanation, no analysis, just payment is not made, wife insisted. Arrest him. The sheer bluntness of it is exactly what sent this whole thing up to a higher court. So what's really key here is all the stuff the court didn't do. The husband didn't get to file a counter-argument. There was no inquiry. No one asked, hey, can this guy actually pay, or is he just choosing not to? And this is the big one. The court never officially said he was in willful default. Nope. The decision was made just because the wife insisted. And that right there raises some huge red flags about whether this was fair or even legal. Okay, so to really get why all that missing stuff is such a big deal, we have to look at the actual law. Let's break it down. We're talking about Section 125, subsection 3 of the Code of Criminal Procedure, and there are 3 little words in there that change everything: without sufficient cause. See, the law doesn't just say if you don't pay, it specifically says if you don't pay and you don't have a good reason. That's a huge difference. And this is where you see the safety nets built right into the law. Sending someone to jail is not step 1, not even close. Step 1 is the court is supposed to try and levy the amount. That's just a fancy way of saying they can seize your property, your car, whatever, and sell it to cover the debt. Jail time? That's way down the list. It's the absolute last resort, only if everything else fails. So let's go back to that phrase, sufficient cause. It means the judge can't just take someone's word for it. They actually have to investigate. It's like this. If you lost your job and genuinely can't pay, well, that's a sufficient cause. But if you have the money and you go buy a fancy new car instead of paying up, now that is what's called willful default. Just not paying isn't enough. The court has a duty to figure out the why behind it. Okay, so with that legal background in mind, the Madras High Court took a hard look at that super blunt arrest order. And their conclusion? Well, it painted a totally different picture of what justice should look like. And this quote from the judge really says it all. You just can't pass an arrest order automatically just because one person demands it. A judge can't just hand over their power to someone else in the courtroom. They have to use their own brain, their own judgment. They're not just a rubber stamp for what one side wants. This really breaks down the 2 completely different ways of thinking. The family court's logic was basically non-payment plus a demand equals arrest. Simple, but wrong. The high court said, no. The right way is enquiry plus proof you can pay plus willful default equals arrest as a last resort. It's a much more careful, deliberate process. So in the end, it was pretty clear-cut. The high court threw out the arrest order, said it was illegal. But, and this is important, they didn't just let the husband walk away. They sent the case straight back down to the family court and basically said, do it over. And this time, do it by the book. Hold a real inquiry, let both people present their evidence. Look, this case is about way more than just one family's fight. It really gets back to a core principle of how our entire justice system is supposed to work. And here's something really important that a lot of people get wrong. The court made this crystal clear. Going to jail for not paying doesn't make the debt disappear. You still owe the money. Jail isn't a punishment that clears your record. It's a tool to force someone who can pay to actually, pay up. So what this case really leaves us with is a super practical checklist. It's the due process checklist. Before a judge can even think about an arrest warrant for debt, they've got to go through these steps. Give proper notice. Check out the person's finances. Let them explain their side. And finally, put it in writing that yes, this person is willfully refusing to pay. And that's why this matters to all of us. The law is always trying to do this tricky balancing act, right? On one side, you have to make sure dependents get the support they need and are legally owed. But on the other side, you have to protect one of our most basic rights. You can't just be thrown in jail without a fair process. So this whole case leaves us with a really big question to think about. It's easy to want justice to be fast, especially when people are in need. But if we rush, we might trample over the very rules that make the system fair in the first place. So it's a constant question we have to ask ourselves. How do we make sure justice isn't just quick, but that it's also, and most importantly, fair?